Previously on X-Men.
Hey, I'm Ben Silverio.
I'm Andy Huddle.
And I'm your host and post, Ansel Birch.
And it's
Time to party!
Party people, welcome back to Time to Party. We're just trying to have a good time.
Trying. And succeeding!
Yay!
Pop the champagne.
Drink your mimosa.
Ooh.
Walk up to a woman, steal her champagne, then pour a fresh glass from the bottle you were holding. Hand it back.
And then say, hey, you guys want to get out of here? Let's go find us a real party. And by that, I mean a veteran sitting in a bar by himself, drinking whiskey, thinking about what it means to be a man.
And if you have no idea what we're talking about,
Go watch Midnight in Paris.
yeah, pretty much.
It's in the name of the show.
It's true. Hopefully you know what we're talking about since we already did an episode about it. But in this second episode for Midnight in Paris, we will be reviewing the movie. Getting into our thoughts and, really talking it out. We're just going to have a little powwow and, really express our feelings about this movie.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed some ayahuasca, and just gotta say, wow.
Wow. Instead of an NPR voice, we'll just do it in Owen Wilson voice.
Yep. You're going to have to do it for the whole show, though.
Wow. I can only say wow.
There's so much more, though. It's so great. So just wow. It's
Paris in the rain.
what could be better? Paris in the rain. I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna take a walk. And why don't you guys come join me? We're gonna take a walk. No, you're gonna take a cab?
I don't like getting wet.
Wow. Oh, okay. Well, they got umbrellas.
The rest of this episode is just going to be Andy as Owen Wilson and Ansel as Rachel McAdams.
I wrote to you every day. Oh, wait, that's a different movie. Oh, wow.
Did you? I didn't get any of those.
You're such a mean girl. Wow.
How about the movie they were in together? Wedding Crashers?
Oh, wow. I didn't even put that together. Oh, you motorboating son of a bitch. Oh.
Party people, if you don't know anything about Midnight in Paris, here's what our good friends at IMDb tell us. While on a trip to Paris with his fiance's family, a nostalgic screenwriter finds himself mysteriously going back to the 1920s every day at midnight. Those things do happen. Mm-hmm, That's correct. IMDb.
Now, I think we've all three of us been to Paris.
Yep.
So that's interesting. We've got that little extra piece of perspective.
Yeah.
Because this was Paris porn, all the way through.
No, this is absolutely Parisian porn.
But isn't that really Woody Allen's MO with all of these city movies? He really spotlights the city as an additional character.
That's how you get funding for the movie.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
it really is. It's a lot. I mean, there's some great movies where the city that they're in is a character in the film, and I always go to Lost in Translation as an example of that. But it's weird though, because modern Paris in the movie I feel like is not a character at all. Mm-mm. But the 1920s version absolutely is. I think they do a really good job of differentiating when you are in the present that was 12 years ago as well as what it was like 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that you've got the cars, especially the hairstyle.
Right.
They took Tom Hiddleston, and my God, does he look like he jumped out of the 1920s.
Yeah. I mean, as F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald. Absolutely. And Kim Pine, of course, Alison Pill.
Yeah. So one of the big things that IMDb emphasizes in that synopsis is the word nostalgic. Mm-hmm. In hearing this entire thing, and knowing that IMDb doesn't really go into details that much, the fact that they include the word nostalgic is very important because it plays a central role to the story.
Yeah, the character is nostalgic, sure. And, not only that, but, Gil is a screenwriter and he's writing his own screenplay that he can't finish about a guy who owns a nostalgia shop.
But is otherwise apparently him.
100%. Because again, it's like it's very meta because Woody Allen wrote Gil to be him. Like he, if this was done in the 70s,
He would be playing.
Woody Allen would be playing Gil, and Scarlett Johansson would be playing Inez. Because that's just
7-year-old or no. Negative something year old.
right. I know. Time travel. Woody would find a way. So again, Woody Allen getting very meta.
Yeah.
Just writing a screenplay about a character who's writing a screenplay about a character.
Sure.
I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, Woody Allen is incredibly nostalgic. His love of clarinet alone, is just well known and well documented. And he always is thinking about the good old days. The movie Radio Days is one of my favorite Woody Allen films, where, you just get his, like, an exaggerated version of his own family and how, the radio was pretty much a part of the family. Mm-hmm. All of his movies, you can find examples of the idea of golden age thinking.
Sure.
As Michael Sheen's character obnoxiously points out.
Oh, well, I guess while we're on the topic of Michael Sheen, Michael Sheen's a great actor.
Phenomenal.
I love Michael Sheen as a performer.
I loved him on 30 Rock.
Oh my god, so fun.
Wesley Snipes. Which one of us looks more like a Wesley? Phenomenal. Wesley Snipes was just such a great character on 30 Rock. And then you see him in, like, the Underworld series, and you're like, it's the same guy?
In Twilight?
But he's just this huge, pretentious douche.
Yeah.
Just constantly correcting everyone and just...
God, the worst.
Oh,
Yeah.
the worst.
When Gil is hesitant to talk about his book in front of Inez's friends, Inez starts talking about the book, and they start making fun of Gil's main character, who owns the nostalgic shop. And when Michael Sheen's Paul hears about all that stuff, he's like, "Who'd want it? People who live in the past." And I mean, obviously, I felt personally attacked, as you can see from your surroundings. You can see all of my toys and memorabilia and books and stuff, and like. This is one of the reasons why I connect to this movie so deeply, is that, I've always been a nostalgic type of person. I've always liked these golden ages, per se, for art, for music, for film, and all that stuff. Of course, when you start getting into how they treated people of color and all that shit, it starts to get a little murky. But, but not all of it,
Sure.
There's some times where people... appreciate everyone.
Well, some of the people who do like historic costuming and historic clothing, like as everyday wear, came up with a really good, I guess, mantra for that sort of thing, which is vintage aesthetics, not vintage values.
I like that.
Ooh.
I like that a lot.
Because, yeah, the 20s, if you're into 20s fashion, get you some.
Yes.
And as long as you don't espouse the complete fuckery that was that era,
Sure.
then go for it, wear you a pork pie and get some big big lapels.
So Ansel and I both worked at the Bristol Renaissance Fair for years and years and years. And one of the big things was, at the time, they were very xenophobic, and at the time, culturally, we would hate outsiders.
Sure.
But we, however, are obviously living in the modern day,
right,
and are much more culturally woke. I hate myself for saying woke, but I'm going to move on and say, we were way more accepting and loving. Sure. And, we had people of, we had Italians, we had Irish, we had Scottish, people who would not really be welcomed in 1574, the year of our Lord. But we welcomed everybody into the gates, and that was, I think, for the best, because but that expression is that's a really good expression.
Right?
I like that. Say it again.
Vintage aesthetics, not vintage values.
I like that a lot.
Host and Post here, just popping in to say it's vintage style, not vintage values. Shame on me. For more information, check out Dandy Wellington. He's all over social media and should be pretty easy to find. Dandy Wellington has plenty of great information on vintage style, not vintage values.
Wow.
Wow.
But yeah, Michael Sheen's Paul probably wouldn't say something like that.
No.
In fact, he continues to attack nostalgia by calling it a flaw in romantic age imagination of those people who can't cope with the present. Of all the weird people that I quote on the show, Warwick Johnson, my roommate.
Whose apartment we're in. Yeah.
Yes. My roommate and author of the graphic novel Empty Grave.
Available at
warwickjohnson.com.
There it is.
Yeah. He likes to use the phrase nostalgia bukkake.
What the fuck?
So
I was so not ready. I guess you never are.
no,
You're never ready for bukkake.
but
You may think you are. But,
Ah!
he points to movies like or stories like Ready Player One as
Right.
nostalgia bukkake.
Oh, that's fair.
No, that's a 100%.
If anything in the universe is that,
Yeah.
if anything is nostalgia bukkake.
Oh, I think Scott Pilgrim is up there too.
No, but see, I think that does it with purpose, whereas Ready Player One and Space Jam: A New Legacy do it very sloppily, and they
They
just
just
throw
throw- yeah.
whatever sticks. Whereas Scott Pilgrim, there's like a character reason why. Apologies to Edgar Wright, maybe, but
Incidentally, I'm seeing the Scott Pilgrim books right over there. That's,
oh yeah, and all the pops over there,
Yeah,
over the TV.
I knew they were there.
I inspired by this. I actually put my Funkos in my recently redecorated basement.
Yeah.
So I've got that with my ridiculous KO edition of Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, they had to wait forever for.
Oh my god, worth it though. Honestly,
Yeah,
like
really?
all the bonus stuff is phenomenal.
In the time that it took him to order and receive this version of the game, I got mine and beat it and maxed out all my characters.
wow.
Yeah, it's
Was it like production delays, or did it just get lost in shipping or something?
I
No, production
ordered. I
delays.
ordered like the biggest deluxe edition with all the bells and whistles.
Mhm.
Like it came in like this big,
Like road case.
like road case.
Dope.
When you open it up, there's like this.
pop-up.
Yeah, it's a pop up. It's got lights and it plays like a MIDI file of a song from the game. Like like those birthday cards that open up and like that.
It's very cool.
It's
Sounds
very
cool
very
as fuck,
cool.
Oh yeah.
And then you open it up more, and there's like laser engraved drumsticks. You get a copy of the soundtrack on CD and on cassette tape.
Yeah.
Sure.
A bunch of stickers.
So many stickers.
A map of the game.
Yeah, map of the game, a map of Toronto.
Yeah.
That looks like the Mario Brothers map.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, then you get the game in a vintage Sega hard case.
Okay.
Yeah, and that has even more stickers in it. So, I mean, worth it, but the
The weight was very
the
long.
weight was redonk. So luckily I kind of forgot about it for a while, but then when it showed up, it was a giant case. I'm like, oh my god.
That's how I treat Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Take my money. Eventually, I got me a present.
Yeah.
It shows up, and you're like, "Oh yeah!"
But the nostalgia bukkake of those stories, kind of I don't want to say downgrades them, but in a way it downgrades them because it makes it all about the nostalgic properties of that story, right?
Well, and because I feel like the book itself, Ready Player One, I felt was much more direct in its what it was.
Sure.
Nostalgic, come on my tits, sort of a thing. But I feel like,
But even the book has its problems,
for sure.
Like they look to be inclusive by having the main cast be very diverse.
Yeah.
But when it comes to doing anything actually world saving, the white guy has to come in, white knight it up.
Yeah.
Which gets even more frustrating when you see the movie version where the involvement of the Asian characters are just basically depleted.
Well, at least the Asian kids don't die in this one.
Well, I mean that's true too.
They made it a point to not kill the minorities and
Yeah, that was definitely
in
a
the
problem.
movie.
So to bring this back to the the Midnight in Paris discussion, you know, it's not really that Gil has this nostalgia bukkake like experience going on, you know, like there's a reason for all this nostalgia. It's not unnecessary or unearned. You know, there's a reason why he likes all of these things, and they're being incorporated into his story. You know, so it's not frivolous. It's not ancillary. So it doesn't fall under the category of Warwick's description. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of why I like this and point to this as an example of good nostalgia, like Scott Pilgrim.
Absolutely. I feel like they chose very specific people to kind of bring in, and I feel like they even kind of throw in like, you know, like T.S. Eliot. Like, I forgot T.S. Eliot was even in there. You know, and having Pablo Picasso and Gertrude Stein, and then you get the trio of surrealists.
Man Ray, Louis Buñuel.
Yep, and Dali, of course. And you know, they all add to, like, what perfect people to explain his situation to.
Yeah.
Is, you know, I'm in love with a woman from another era, and now I don't know what to do. And he explains this to the surrealists, who are like,
you inhabit two worlds.
No,
Yeah.
like, what a weird idea. Why would you say such crazy
should be
things?
institutionalized.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
right, of course.
I see the human problem that you're having.
I see a picture. Yeah.
And, you know, part of that, even for me, is like seeing the connection of, I mean, also this is me who looks way, way, way too deep into movies and media and stuff. But
That's
like
what we're here
the two worlds element of like, hey, being Asian American is different than being Asian. You know, you're living in these two different cultures, trying to balance them. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about that lately because when we're recording this, I had already, I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. Turning Red just came out. These are very focused movies on that certain experience of living a double life.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of can relate in that way. I mean, Gil's problem isn't as existential as trying to define your culture.
Sure, but you can definitely kind of relate to the sort of belonging to two worlds.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, like, you are physically living in, you know, the year 2010, but, you know, you feel like you belong in an earlier era.
Right.
You know, does Gil, you know, not Asian Americans, because they wouldn't have a good time.
No, it's
Right.
not
No.
No.
But, you know, it also doesn't help that Gil doesn't really have a supportive partner.
She's the worst.
Yeah, Inez is not great as a partner.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
She does not listen to him
No.
at all.
I mean, she openly mocks him to his face.
Yeah.
And just is just so dismissive of him. Like the scene where he's like, I'm going to walk to the hotel. And she's like, no, okay, we're going to take a cab.
Yeah.
Oh, no. The scene where they're going to go out for a drink, or they're going to go out dancing.
Yes.
And he's like, no, let's go take a walk. We're going to take a walk.
I would like to involve you in this romantic thing.
Right, while we're in Paris. No, I'm gonna go dancing though. So I'm gonna go do that.
Yeah.
Which, to a certain extent, like, I get. As a real human being in real human being situations, sometimes you gotta be like, look, this is what I really want to do. Is it okay if we just, like, do two different things?
Right, okay, but I'm gonna go do that. Okay.
But she was such a jerk about it.
She was. She's a jerk about literally everything.
And this was definitely very different from when Owen Wilson and Rachel McAdams were previously together in the movie, Wedding Crashers.
Very much so.
Where...
You motorboat son of a bitch.
Well, Rachel McAdams is just generally a lot more mean in this one, you know?
She's a mean girl.
That's true. She is a mean girl.
You know, the other thing that's really weird is that Owen Wilson is on his own.
Yeah.
Like, he is by himself throughout this movie. Like, he doesn't have a friend in the modern day because he's in Paris.
Yeah.
You know, he is on this trip with his parents-in-laws.
About to be.
Yeah, his future.
they're not
future.
even...
That's right. His future in-laws.
With these motherfuckers.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
right.
these white privilege a-holes.
How much was that rocking chair? Like
20 grand? No, 18,000 euro.
Yeah.
Fucking insane for a rocking chair.
And they're just they're going in.
And you don't find these things in the U.S.
Haven't you ever been to a Cracker Barrel? You're gonna find one.
I'm pretty sure that's kind of our deal. I don't think you see a lot of rocking chairs in Paris. I never did.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a big part of Parisian culture.
Yeah, there's no Cracker Barrel there.
Gosh, they're missing out on some quality food poisoning.
But you know,
All the finest weird gift shop at the front.
but you know, they use the metric system over there. So
It's not even going to be a barrel.
The cracker hogshead.
Samuel L. Jackson should go on a rant
There you go.
about this measurement in Europe.
I mean, they do use barrels. The ton barrel.
The look on Ansel's face almost says to me that he knows how to make one.
I'm thinking way too hard about this.
Wonderful but forgettable. Sounds like a movie I've seen. I probably wrote it. Is a line that Gil Pender says to his almost father-in-law.
Yeah.
Or mother-in-law.
Yep.
After they talk about going to see an American movie at the cinema. What movie do you think Woody Allen was talking about?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, one of the things that's great is that Gil, he has a job that is actually kind of my dream job, and that is being a script doctor for Hollywood. I would love to be a script doctor like that. I can look at a movie and say, here are the 3 things I would do differently about this movie.
Instead, Hollywood has unpaid interns doing that.
I know, and it's just it hurts.
I know. I had to do that for a couple scripts.
Yeah, but let's see. Let's think about this. What was around in 2010 that would have been funny but forgettable?
I bet a lot of things.
Right? Let's see.
What movies came out in 2010?
Megamind, Despicable Me, Iron Man 2,
Oh, The Last Airbender,
Shutter Island,
Percy
Remember
Jackson
Me.
and the Lightning Thief.
Aw, Shrek Forever After.
Oh, here's one for you. Leap Year.
Aw, Buried came out in 2010.
Oh, 127 hours.
Due date.
I got it. It's the backup plan.
This is the backup plan?
It is the backup plan starring Jennifer Lopez.
Are you sure it wasn't Burlesque or MacGruber?
I enjoyed Burlesque.
I did too, honestly. Yeah.
What if it
All right,
was
then
You Again, starring Kristen Bell and Sigourney Weaver?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because I feel like that's a mom movie, right?
I have a feeling it's a comedy with a female lead, and I don't mean that as
wow.
any.
Kristen Bell, Sigourney Weaver, Jamie Lee Curtis, Betty White, Victor Garber,
It's a good
Kristen
cast.
Chenoweth.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree with you though. That is the sort of thing you go see with your mom.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Just being in Paris and going to see an American movie.
Right.
God, what a
Because, I mean, that had to be Woody Allen throwing shade at something.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you could also read it as him being self-deprecating, as he usually is.
Right.
You know?
Well, also just showing that Gil is very much not happy with his current job, because he says that he makes a ton of money from script doctoring.
Yeah.
But just spewing out a random screenplay is
Right.
nothing for him. But he
Now, is
doesn't
he
really get
doctoring or
enjoyed.
is he writing?
I thought he was doing both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he gets hired to do
Because
that.
I didn't pick up on the doctoring thing, but
Yeah.
Because, he might get hired to, punch up a script.
sure. I mean,
know.
that happens.
Yeah. Which is, and I mean, both are, great. If I, had one movie, I would, shit myself.
Oh no! Don't throw me in that briar patch.
Yeah. But it's definitely a tool to show how how terrible his future in-laws
Yeah.
are, that we're not going to go see theater or a show or anything or appreciate art.
Right.
We're gonna
You're
go
in
see
Paris, surrounded by all of this art
culture and
culture.
art. So I'm going to go to see an American movie.
Right. Although, to be fair, when I studied abroad in London, I did go see an American movie.
I mean, but how long were you there?
Months.
Yeah, like me too.
Well, what
I saw
movie?
Spider-Man 3 when I was in England.
Ouch.
I want to say it was one of the Pirates movies or something else, because I just remember going to the Odeon. And,
Sure.
Like,
We had
it had to be big enough that like a bunch of my friends were just like, "Hey, let's go see it."
Oh, that makes sense. We had a student cinema, so I watched a fair amount of American movies there, just because it was what we were all doing together.
But like, even though I went to that one American movie, I went to a lot of shows on the West End.
Yeah.
So
That makes up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
I
you
think
see
so.
a panto?
I didn't.
Oh,
But-
come on.
I know.
That's too bad.
Like I really wanted to go to the Globe, and then for some reason we didn't. I don't know why.
That happened to me. We went and they were closed.
Same.
Ah.
I got to see the lobby of the Globe.
We got to see the gates and we posed dramatically.
We were talking about Patrick Stewart earlier. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen were doing Waiting for Godot on the West End when it was there.
Wow.
And obviously sold out
Yeah.
for weeks. So we could not go to that.
Wow.
I would give body parts to have seen that.
I know. So speaking of Waiting for Godot, we just watched Drive My Car, which is one of the films nominated
Right.
for Best Picture. It's a Japanese language film.
Sadly, it did not win for any of the categories in which it was nominated.
And the main character is like an actor and director, and one of the things that is his hallmark is that there's no language barrier or anything like that. So like he's doing a production of Waiting for Godot. Estragon is speaking Japanese. Vladimir is speaking Korean.
Interesting.
So up at the top, there's superscript
Oh.
of what they're saying in English, Japanese,
And Korean.
and Korean
That's
Fascinating.
all at the same time. So you can read
I love that.
what they're saying. So even though they're speaking different languages to one another,
Yeah.
they're still like performing it.
Interesting.
And then he does a production, like then later in the movie, he goes to Hiroshima to do a workshop where they're performing Uncle Vanya. And they've got Chinese, Korean, Korean Sign Language.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's intense.
it's very, very intense. And I think one of the characters is actually Russian. In another production, like one of the characters is actually speaking Russian as well. And again, you've got like the superscript up at the top, and it's very cool
Wow.
because they're, to an untrained gringo, you don't know necessarily that they're speaking other languages, but it is like a very important plot point that there's language is not a barrier, and that all the characters and they talk about the rehearsal process. Because when they're doing table reads, they have to knock on the table to show that they're done with their line. Otherwise, people are like jumping all over each other. And I personally, I watched the movie Coda right beforehand, which is all about a deaf family,
Right.
and the one daughter who actually can hear, and so getting to see like American Sign Language and Korean Sign Language like back to back, they're very, very different.
Sure.
Interesting.
Which is really, really fascinating. She plays Sonia in Uncle Vanya, which is a very touching role, and she's got a lot of really great monologues. So you've got a character, and it's just silent on stage, signing to Uncle Vanya this very, very encouraging, very sweet speech, all in Korean Sign Language.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So many people take language for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be a really important storytelling tool. For instance, Hikaru Shida could be cutting promos on AEW television in Japanese with subtitles on them, but they don't do it, which is dumb.
Yeah.
Io Shirai does it on NXT, and it enhances her character. It lets her speak in her native tongue. She's a lot more comfortable tearing down her opponent by speaking in her, regular language.
Well, I think that's what got Asuka over.
Exactly.
Is
100%.
she started doing these crazy emotional promos in Japanese
Yes.
on commentary, and nobody really knew what she was saying.
Sure.
But it got her over like
Yeah.
crazy.
But with Midnight in Paris,
Mhm.
you get a number of different languages: Spanish, French, and you don't get the subtitles.
Right.
Because, like Gil, you're meant to be the fish out of water in this instance.
Right. Well, we
You
were when we started watching Coda, we weren't watching it on Apple Plus, and there were no subtitles. So I'm like, oh, okay, so we're meant to feel like fish out of water, not knowing what they're saying. No, we just don't have a subtitle track. Okay, that's what it is.
Okay. All right. This was not a choice. All right.
But for Midnight in Paris, I double checked because I put on the subtitles. I'm like, should I be understanding what they're saying to Toulouse-Lautrec in French?
No, the subtitles say "speaks French."
Pretty much, yes. So using that as another storytelling tool is, interesting in the various ways it can be utilized.
Well, and that's another thing that they don't really address, because they mostly talk about how he feels like he was born in the wrong time,
Yes,
not the wrong place.
sure.
Like the 1920s in America, very different from Paris.
Yes,
so his nostalgia is specifically in one place, not where his ancestors would have necessarily been from or anything like that.
Which is interesting because so many of the people that he meets are not Parisian either.
That's also a very good point. It just happened to be this melting pot of culture at that particular time.
yeah.
That just lures in, these people whose names will go down in history forever and ever.
Yeah, and when it comes down to the message of Midnight in Paris, it's very simple. It's a very simple story of your main character learning the grass is always greener, doesn't always apply. There's always, when you think something is better, someone in that situation thinks something else is better. Andy wants to be a script doctor in Hollywood, but some lowly intern is doing that work and is like, I wish I was working at a farm in Ohio.
I
I'm
want to
so
work with
sorry, kid.
bees.
Bees?
That part's cool.
I want to be covered in bees.
But
if you ever get the chance, take it. By the way, it's
to
so
do
cool.
beekeeping?
No, that, but also bee beards. It's so cool.
You already have a beard. Does that
I
affect
know.
the beard?
It's not advisable to do it if you have a beard already, but you can.
You shouldn't have a bee-eared
Yeah.
with a beard.
Yes, exactly.
That's the real message of this podcast, actually.
Ba, ba, ba.
So when Gil meets Adriana, he's talking about how great the 1920s is and how lucky she is to be in all of that. But then she would rather be in La Belle Epoque.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they meet the people in La Belle Epoque, they want to be in the Renaissance.
Mhm.
So, the message of this movie is really hammered home.
Yeah.
It's not subtle. Yeah. No.
It's not
No.
subtle, but I don't hate it.
Same.
Because this is something that a lot of people, myself included, need to be reminded of. Some days I'll sit on my break or something. And by some days, I mean more recently.
Do you
I'll-
normally stand during your break?
Right, yes. Sometimes I need to get up because I'm in that chair
Oh, yeah.
for 8 hours, But I just remind myself took you how long to get here? There are people who would be dying to work in your line of work, and you're really lucky to have all this stuff. And it's a nice reminder of just hey, appreciate what you have, right? I can be a really nostalgic person and love Bill and Ted and Back to the Future and Josie and the Pussycats, but that doesn't mean that I'm not living in the present as well as much as I can, considering we're still in an ongoing pandemic. But
Sure. Well, what I think is interesting is that he's nostalgic for another time and place, and at the end of the movie, he just changes the place, or he ends up, I want to be in Paris in the 1920s, to then just being, I just want to be in Paris,
Which I think is a good indication of his character growth, but
Yeah.
also how do you not want to just like move
to
the
Paris.
yeah,
like it's
not
just,
Paris specifically for me, but like when you've for me it's York, right? If you've been to a place that changed you a little bit, it's hard to not want to just stay there.
Sure, but and I think it's the movie, we talk about time travel and stuff like that, but I think it's ultimately like I still want to leave America behind, and
But for Gil specifically, it's that he also wants to leave Inez behind.
Yeah,
and he comes to realize that
because she
part of this realization.
Because she is, her and her family are pretty much everything wrong with America when you really look at it. Republicans, and it's just white privilege. There's just so much that they represent.
Consumerism.
Yeah, exactly. That he wants to get rid of.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, can we talk about one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie?
No.
Oh.
No, that
I'm just kidding.
No, that's fine. Long time listener, first time caller. That's totally fine.
We don't talk about the fun stuff here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We don't talk about fun stuff. No.
What were you going to talk about?
Funniest scene in the whole movie.
So, Inez's father doesn't trust Gil.
Yes.
And thinks that he might be having an affair. So he hires a detective. The detective follows Gil on one of his midnight walks, and he ends up in the Palace of Versailles, like during the French Restoration period. And he ends up running from the guards.
Off with his head.
Yep.
And then they later talk about how the detective was never seen again.
Never seen again.
It was
that
a very
guy's
funny
dead.
bit. Yeah.
That guy is dead.
I just think that's so funny. I just.
But as a storytelling tool, it tells you that if someone goes back in time the way Gil did, they can stay there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Gil left.
Yeah.
Well, and we already left
Adriana.
Yeah,
behind.
because she stayed.
Right.
And, the other thing I find very, very funny is that of all things, Gil finds a copy of her diary
That was
at a
the
flea
thing.
market.
Yeah.
Like, what bookseller just happens to have, a girl's diary?
I've been to plenty of flea markets and antique shops that have just had photos of people that are definitely long time deceased that you could just purchase for $1.
That's fair.
Okay.
It is also Shakespeare and Sons, which is a spectacular bookshop. I'm glad it got a...
Oh no, he buys her journal from a street vendor.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Shakespeare and Sons is later.
He goes to that bookshop. Yes.
Yeah, he does. But that's, because it's just a street vendor. And then he has... Well, okay, so I guess, the only... literally the only person he can really go to is the girl from...
The Rodin.
the Rodin exhibit. Mm-hmm.
Because it's not until later that that Leah Seydoux comes into play. I mean, she pops up a couple times as the record seller, and then ultimately we see her at the end. But
Do you like a Cole Porter?
but yeah, Cole Porter. If you notice, the only song on the soundtrack that gets repeated is "Let's Fall in Love," and I feel like it comes back at really important moments.
Yeah.
When Gil actually realizes something about his current relationship. But then there's that line about the beans, and then I'm just taken out of it.
Even Boston beans do it.
I do love Cole Porter, I will say though. So despite Midnight in Paris being a pretty simple movie, the premise is simple.
Yeah.
Even the time travel mechanism is pretty simple.
I mean, you sit on some stairs at midnight.
Yeah, and then
In Paris.
they come to pick you up for a party.
And you make a choice to go on an adventure.
yeah.
This is a guy who is resisting a lot of adventures. But these people show up and he's like, yeah, I'll get into a random cab with you.
Right. And
Which
then,
is very dangerous.
Right. And then
You shouldn't do that.
when Adriana's with him, they get in a horse-drawn buggy.
Yup.
Yeah, so I mean, despite all of this very simple storytelling and like a non-subtle theme, it's still a pretty good movie.
For sure.
Like it's done very well. It's shot very well. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's well. I mean, it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, I believe.
It won the Oscar for best.
It was
Oscar. Nominated for a couple different things.
Yeah,
but it won Oscar and Golden Globe for Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah, and not that I put a ton of like stock in the Oscars, you know, but for people that do, that's just proving that this is a very good story.
For me, winning Best Original or Adapted Screenplay, I think is a higher honor than Best Motion Picture. Because for me, 9 times out of 10, the movie that wins Best Screenplays are usually I enjoy more than whatever wins Best Picture.
So, as we like to do here on Time to Party, we like to, when we revisit these movies, we like to determine whether or not they were worth our time. So, Andy Huddle was... Noted cinephile, esteemed beard haver, and fellow collector of memorabilia.
And semi-professional Owen Wilson impersonator.
Wow.
Wow.
Do you find, upon this rewatch, that Midnight in Paris is worth your time?
You know, I will say, I think watching it this time, it kind of got knocked down just a little bit for me. You know, and I couldn't even tell you, like, why exactly. It's definitely, like, one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. But I don't know, as I was watching it this last time, it kind of went down a couple notches. And I couldn't tell you why. I just maybe it was just I like held it up in like such a high regard for so long that it's kind of I overhyped it in my mind a little bit. Again, it's still top 10. It just might be closer to 10 than 5 at this point.
Like I feel like every time I rewatch it, it comes at a point in my life where I need the reminder. You know, where it's good to hear, like, hey, you know, maybe don't live so much in the past.
Yeah.
You know, like all the stuff that you're nostalgic for is good, but centering your life around it maybe isn't.
To quote noted poet Garth Algar, live in the now! Ansel, what did you think of the movie? I mean, this was your first time with it. I mean, it's obviously like a big favorite of both of us. So, I mean, I know you have kind of an unusual experience.
I have. I don't know how much of it will make it into the podcast from the previous brief mentions I've made, but yeah. I experienced this film for the first time today, and I ran out of time to like sit down and watch it. But I had 2 reasonably long car rides that I had to get through. So I listened to this movie through my car stereos while driving. So I'm sure there were some amazing visuals. I bet there was lots of cool use of color and stuff like that, but I didn't get any of that stuff. But what I will say, I mean, first off, the story was fabulous. Everybody had a really distinctive voice, which was really nice. And, you know, as a podcast producer, I really appreciate the sound design that went into this because, like, they didn't think I was going to watch this way. Like, who does what I did? No one. It's the fool. I don't recommend it. But for this movie, it worked. Like, the sound design was so crystal clear. That, like, even in the montage scenes where they're, like, moving from place to place, each place had its own distinctive sound. Each place had slightly different music shifts.
The music, you know, and that's one thing that I think Woody Allen does incredibly well is the music in his movies. I think the more kind of straightforward the movie is, like, the more dynamic I think the music usually is with him.
Which I think is the beauty of doing a more straightforward movie, is that you can, you know, you're making a movie that is pretty direct, right? It's, this guy needs to figure out who he is and get over his need to live in the past.
Yeah.
Pretty basic. And so everything else becomes, you know, extra fun stuff and art. You know, you get to put in the art.
Yeah.
As Hemingway from the movie says, I don't think the real Hemingway actually said this, but no subject is terrible if the story is true.
I think Hemingway said that.
Did he really?
I'm pretty sure Hemingway said something like
All right.
that.
Well,
If not, I mean, it's definitely
That's
like
the sort of
it
shit
definitely-
you
Hemingway
walk up to
said.
somebody and said, "Did you know that Hemingway once said?"
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the whole quote is no subject is terrible if the story is true, if the prose is clean and honest, and if it affirms grace and courage under pressure.
And I think this movie does those things.
Right. Yes. Despite
Like, even in the moment where Owen Wilson's character confronts his wife about the affair that she's having and has to deal with the fallout, especially in the face of her parents, who become even more the worst people ever
Yeah.
in that moment, Owen Wilson handles it with grace
He
and
does.
courage under pressure.
indeed.
Meeting Hemingway did him a favor, apparently.
Well, and I totally forgot that moment where Gertrude Stein reads his novel and is like, well, I think it's interesting that the main character doesn't realize that his wife is having an affair, and it's in that moment where he's like,
Is there what? What?
Huh?
She's doing what now?
yeah,
His line is, it's called denial.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, he says it like pretty defeated, but almost like a light bulb.
But yeah, he realizes that it's true in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then he has that moment of acceptance, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Really enjoyed it. It was absolutely worth my time. And I'm going to go back and watch it again with my eyes.
Good.
Yeah,
As you
no,
should.
you should. It's they act the crap out of it. The best way to put it is just I feel like they act really well. Like the acting is just really solid from everybody. Like I feel like even the minor characters play the parts exactly like how they should.
So we all fear death and question our place in the universe. The artist's job is not to succumb to despair, but find an antidote for the emptiness of existence. Party people, I hope that antidote for you was temporarily our show about midnight in Paris. That does it for our second episode. If you've gotten this far, thank you for sitting through all that.
It was a long.
It's not
train
really an
ride,
endorsement, but okay.
a long bike ride.
Hey, if
glad
they've
you made
already made it this far,
That's
then
true. They already know.
they already know.
yeah.
So, as always, party people, it's been great. If you want to talk to us more about the movie, you can find us on the internet, on Instagram and Twitter. I am at bsilverio20.
I am at Indecisionist on Twitter and at The Indecisionist on Instagram. This has been an Indecisionist production. Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art and to Marlon Longan of Marlon and the Shakes for our amazing theme song. To find Andy Huddle on Twitter, look for Ando Has Issues.
If you want to join in the conversation, use the hashtag time to party. That's time the number 2 party. Ansel checks it. He swears.
I do.
Yes. And until next time, when we return to talk about the edutainment aspect.
That's right.
Oh.
We're getting real obscure on this one.
Yeah. So, if you're ready to hear a very long presentation about Buñuel and the Surrealists from Andy Huddle, come back. If you don't want to hear that, that's not what we're doing. So,
But if it is, then it totally is.
absolutely.
And if it isn't, but you wanted it to be, that's the surreal.
Yes.
Ali.
Dali! So while Andy tries to round up his rhinoceros, I don't know what that's supposed to be.
Where were you going
I don't
with
know
that?
where I was going with
I'm
that.
seeing rhinoceros.
All right, until next time, party people, just remember, be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.
dudes.